Hey guys, I'm the Depressed Engineer, and today I want to talk about doing work at my engineering job versus doing work at home, or I guess you can label that as hobbies, really. So, for starters, I want to start off by saying I'm going to try to watch how many ums and likes, and I'm going to try to watch my filler words. It's because I know that I do have a tendency to say and like a lot, and you probably wouldn't even notice it if I didn't point it out, but I don't know. Ever since I went to the Toastmasters meeting, I did learn a lot more about just kind of like pausing. I said it there. Pausing and just kind of slowing down while you're talking and just kind of watching out for stuff like that. And I think I might end up, maybe one day I'll make a video that it'll be something like the like challenge or something like that, and every time I say like, I'll take a drink. I don't know. So in any case, I want to talk about engineering versus hobbies. So when I do work at my job, when I actually get work, it'll be something like I said in the other videos. I will work in spreadsheets, Microsoft Excel. I'll sometimes make presentations in PowerPoint. So when I work in PowerPoint, it's usually something along the lines of creating something to teach something. So for instance, my one job was telling people how to operate the system. So I'd go in there and make some slides on, this button does this indicator means this. So it was kind of like a instruction manual in a slideshow format. When I make those things, I don't really, there's a small sense of accomplishment when I do those things. I mean, I'm at a point right now, if I get pretty much any sort of work, I'm pretty happy about it, because then I have something to work on and some sort of goal to achieve. This is probably digressing, but I just recently received a task. Actually, I received 2 tasks. And both of those tasks are completely dependent on someone else doing their tasks. So I was literally given 2 tasks that I can't complete in any sort of scenario until other people finish their tasks. And the task I was given a low priority, but I'm just sitting there going, okay, really? Like, you just gave me some tasks to work on and I can't do anything with them? Awesome. There are a very few amounts of times where I've worked on something and I came back feeling like I actually did something. So a few of those instances have been with a company I worked with in Indiana, where we did a lot of troubleshooting. So that was actually a lot of hands-on experience, and I actually kind of missed that job a few times, but the pay wasn't that great, so I had to move on. But I worked there and I would take circuit cards and I would grab a DMM and measure voltages on pins. I would look at the schematics. They had design documentation, so I'd actually go in there and read the documentation that says, hey, this circuit was developed for these reasons, and this is what happens when you put these 2 things together, and if you change these parameters, then this output will occur. And they were actually really helpful documents to read. So once I understood how those documents came together to the actual product, I would take that information and look into it further using equipment like oscilloscopes, DMMs, logic analyzers, things like that. So I would use the equipment to troubleshoot circuit cards. I would also go out on the floor and check out what kind of process we were using in order to produce these products. And there were a few times where the process was very strange and didn't make a whole lot of sense. So you'd have to go over there and tell them, so why are you doing it this way? And they have to say, well, this is the way we've done it for years. And you just sit there going, well, just because you've done it for this many years doesn't mean that's the way it should be done. So those were some of the better times where it felt like I was actually doing something, where my hands-on experience would actually influence product flow. But I just couldn't stay there because of the pay and the complacency that was there with letting equipment fail, mainly because it was old and nobody was doing any sort of preventative maintenance whatsoever. So I just got tired of it and moved on. Now, most of the other jobs I've had have really just been more service-based, where, like I said previously, I'm writing Word documents. So for an example, I'll write in manuals essentially for how to run things, or I'll create a slideshow that tells you, hey, this is how this product works, and this is how it's created, and this is the schematic of the part, here's all the parts and pieces, yada yada. So it's a lot of document creation, and there's a lot of, I guess that's really the main part of it, is document creation. And I haven't really done a whole lot of, lab work and creating lab reports, but it's mainly been spreadsheets, Word documents, and I think that's honestly 80% of my work is Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and PowerPoint. And I don't even know if you really want to call PowerPoint a document, but it's a presentation slideshow, so whatever, I guess that works. So let's talk about my hobbies. I honestly haven't really had a whole lot of hobbies since I left college, or graduated college. I don't want to just say I left college. That sounds like I dropped out. But I have been trying to pick up more hobbies now. And the main reason why I haven't had a whole lot of hobbies is because when I don't know if anyone else out there relates, but when I was in engineering school, I focused primarily on engineering. I didn't really do a whole lot else. There were a few times I went to various parties and I'd meet people, but I was always so focused on exams and trying to pass everything, figuring out what percentage of my homework actually mattered so I can get an A in the class, that you kind of lose sight of all the extracurricular things you can do in college, like Toastmasters or Engineers Without Borders, groups like that can really expand your sight into things. So I never really had enough time to really look into hobbies. I mean, the only other really hobby I had was video games, and I mean, video games can be a hobby. I actually recently reached a point where I got kind of tired of playing video games because I just didn't feel like I was being productive with anything. And I think part of that may have been a little bit of depression too, where I just kind of stopped being interested in things, especially like video games, things I used to really enjoy. But I think another part of that is when you grow up, your interests just totally change sometimes. Like you'll look at things you used to do years previously, and it just doesn't even pique your interest anymore because now you're interested in hiking, or you want to do video editing, or you want to create a piece of art, something different, because I'm sure we all get bored with things at a certain point. I know I definitely get bored. That's probably another part of why I jumped jobs in the past, was because I got bored with something very quickly. And I wanted to move on to something where I can learn something totally different and challenge myself, because I don't like being complacent and bored. And that's why I'm doing these YouTube videos, because they're actually really challenging not as challenging as some videos out there, obviously, because all I'm doing right now is just recording myself in front of a monitor and a webcam. But I've learned a lot more about video editing. I definitely learned a lot of video editing when I created Zashbell Abridged. And doing those things, like getting challenges like that, learning a new programming language, learning how to video edit, learning how to use Audacity and change the pitch of my voice and reduce all the background noise, I've felt so much happier doing that stuff, because it's things that I'm just not familiar with. And when I Google search things and I find the answer to it, I'm like, oh, I finally have a solution. I can go into this and change the program this way, or make some edits this way. And then you do it and you actually create something. Like, that's the whole point of why I joined engineering, was because I wanted to be able to design something, put in the work, write up those documents, and then have a product that I can say, hey, I worked on this, or I contributed to this with a team of engineers. Not just like I designed something and then I can call it my own, but even a team effort where I can say, hey, I worked on the power systems part of this product. That would be amazing. And unfortunately, that's not what engineering really is. Engineering's been a lot of like org charts and presentations and spreadsheets that do 2 + 2 with some formulas in the background. There's a few times where sometimes you'll create something like that and you'll feel pretty awesome about it, but for the majority of the time it never really feels like anything's really being done, and you don't really feel like you're really part of a team. And I think a lot of that is a lot of engineers tend to be a little socially awkward, and you just work in these groups that feel so socially distant from each other. Like, for example, at work we have a team of people that does a specific design work. Well, design, I don't know if I'd call it design. It's really just testing things here and there and then writing up a document. There's not really what I would call design. I don't think what we do is design work, but that's another thing you'll learn out there is design means a totally different thing at different companies. But in any case, it just feels like I'm not really close to any of my coworkers. I've had a few conversations. So I was given a mentor, which has almost never happened before. It's only happened once before. I was given a mentor and he told me pretty much what to do and what to expect. But it only lasted for maybe my first and second week. And then after that, we kind of just stopped talking to each other. And it was kind of nice because he would come to my cube, I would go to his cube, and well, we don't have cubes again, we have offices, but I would go to his office or he'd come to mine and we'd just talk. And we'd say, okay, well, this is how you perform this task and this is how you run this software. And then after that, I'd go, okay, great. Well, so how's life outside of work? And then we just talk like normal human beings. But there's so many times where everybody gets so caught up in their job that nobody really talks to each other. There's a small social group in our, department that goes out for lunch and they seem like best friends. But everybody else just seems so isolated and they seem so stuck in their own mindset of, well, I have to be at work. I got to do this thing. I'm just sitting there saying, listen, you got to go out there and do more stuff. Your life is not just sitting in an office doing work. There's more to life than that. But I believe that contributes a lot to what kind of work you're doing at work and how you feel about it. Because when you're disjointed, just dislocated and dissociated from all that, it just feels like you're swimming in the ocean and there's no land, and you're just sitting there trying to do what you can to contribute to something that you can't see. It's very strange. Whereas when I'm doing work, I'll work at home creating these videos or working with my 3D printer I have and learning new software for 3D printing, trying to teach myself CAD work. Even recently I've been teaching myself HTML through freecodingcamp.com. There's just something about, like, a lot of people will sit out there and say, oh, well, coding's kind of boring. And I don't think it really is. Like, for me personally, it really isn't, just because even if you're doing the same language and the same code over and over again, you can apply it in so many different ways. You can change the way the lines of code line up. You can change the location of certain code and it changes the output completely. You can debug somebody's code and make it something totally different using the same languages you've learned in the past. There's just something about being able to put code down, like just lines of code, and then have something like almost instantaneous feedback. It's just nice to have that instantaneous feedback of, hey, I just made a line of code. Okay, let's see what happens. You press go or compile or whatever, and it says, hey, you did this wrong, or there's an error here. And you go, okay, I gotta go back. I gotta go fix this error. You fix the error, do it again, and then you get instant feedback again on hey, you did it right. And then when you actually do it right and you have code work, especially if you just wrote code for the first time and then you run it and it works the very first time, there's nothing really better than that feeling. It's pretty great. Although you do end up questioning how that code actually worked, but that's a whole other story. So in conclusion, really, I feel more fulfillment doing my hobbies, doing work at home, than I do at work. And that's a big part of why a lot of people who work in cubes and work in offices, and a lot of people just don't feel like they're contributing anything. And I guess there are some people who try to avoid contributing anything too, but that's a whole other spectrum. But people who want to do things and then just don't fulfill that hole in their heart where they want to actually complete something and have a task where they've produced something, it leaves you empty inside. So you have to turn to doing things at home and, working on a 3D print, or, trying to teach yourself new things at home. And especially teaching your things is so important because the world we live in right now is constantly changing. Even HTML code is being updated pretty fast, and all these different languages and programs are being created. I've been looking at jobs for software developers, and I swear every company I look at, there's a general basis of HTML, CSS, and Java, and then some SQL, some jQuery, things like that. But then there's a ton of other programs that companies use that will research other companies' data, research their own company's data. And it's just, there's so many out there. Like, each company I've looked at has a different piece of software they use. And it's mind-boggling to me that there's so many of these things. And, there's a certain point, like, how do you even keep up with all of it? You just have to keep going out there, researching new things and teaching yourself new things and obtaining knowledge, and then applying that previously obtained knowledge to something completely new, at least something somewhat related, really helps out. And then it's kind of like learning all over again, going through school and being able to say, hey, I actually put in the effort and I was rewarded for it by making a product that actually works. Maybe you'll get a raise, who knows, depending on what you're working on. But that stuff I have not experienced in engineering. I've only experienced a true meritocracy, if that's what you want to call it, outside of work, where I've gotten better with STLs and creating CAD files and printing out things, and video editing, learning different video editing software like HitFilms or DaVinci, Sony Vegas, and Adobe Premiere. Just all that stuff seems way more useful than anything you'll ever really learn in engineering. And again, I can't speak for everybody because everybody's going to have a different experience, but that's the experience I've gone through. So thanks for watching again, guys. Really appreciate your support, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. So bye.